debt ceiling.
Yes.
Obviously, one of the biggest things you guys are going to confront this year, I've talked to dozens of people preparing for this interview, a lot of members, a lot of people around town, a lot of people throughout the media, asking them, what's the big thing they want to learn from you? A lot of them say they want to know what is the line on the debt ceiling. What are the terms? What is the line in the sand? What are you willing to accept? Lay out the battlefield for us.
Look, the debt ceiling is very serious, and we've got to understand what the debt ceiling is. And just to put it down, it's like providing your child with a credit card. They charge all the way up to the limit. You're responsible for paying it, but do you raise the limit without changing the behavior, or do you change the behavior? You know, many times in American history that we've came upon this debt ceiling, we would negotiate, and we would, Republicans and Democrats alike, have really in time, the Grand Rudman, have really gotten reforms fiscally that made America stronger. Right now we have inflation because the Democrats run away spending. And what really people want to look at, is it a spending problem or is it a revenue problem? Because our spending is $31 trillion of debt. You just had the Congressional Budget Office just come out a couple weeks ago and tell us a forecast for the next 10 years. What they say is, in the next 10 years, we will end up paying $10.5 trillion just in interest. So it's like just paying the interest on your credit card, never taking on the principal. Now, put that in perspective. How much interest have we paid in the last 80 years? Let's go back to 1940. So if you add up all the interest that we paid for our debt since 1940 today, it's $9 trillion. So what took you 80 years, you're going to pay more than 10 years. And every great society collapses when they overextend themselves. Now let's compare. So is the problem we need more revenue? Well, when you look at the revenue that's coming in, it's about 20% of GDP. Well, is that high or low? The 50-year average is 17%. There's only 3 times really in history have we gotten 20% of GDP, 1944, 2000. So really we're getting more money coffers into the coffers of government, but what the Democrats have done, they increased discretionary spending more than 30%. They increased all this spending, and that's what put us into this problem. The $6 trillion added dollars that the Democrats added. So we're in a real problem. So the one thing I firmly believe, we're not going to raise taxes, and we're not going to pass a clean debt ceiling. So what I told the president, we can sit down and we can talk. He thinks you should just raise the debt ceiling and not negotiate. That's not what history tells us. That's not what the American people want. 74% want us to sit down and solve this problem. Why? Because if you keep spending more, inflation comes. That's what's brought us inflation. It gives an advantage to China over. We're going to spend $60 million today paying China because of the interest. We're going to do that tomorrow and the day after and the day after. I'd rather invest it in America. And we're going to hurt our children and grandchildren. So what I propose is, and we're sitting talking among ourselves, I just brought in the Congressional Budget Office Director, and I brought every Republican and every Democrat to the auditorium. Normally we have only done that for a classified briefing when there is some challenge to America, be it the military. Well, I think this is just as big as issue. I think it's our biggest issue out there. So we're all coming together because we're not going to solve this problem just by ourselves. But I told the president we have to spend less money. We need to do things like energy independent. You know why? Because that lowers inflation. You'll never lower inflation unless you lower energy cost. We should do something on work requirements where the Democrats have taken those away. We should encourage people to go to work, not encourage them to sit home. We can look at securing our border. That would save us money and save us lives with stopping the fentanyl from coming across, keeping Americans at their jobs. So there's a lot of things. We could go out and we can recapture billions of dollars in COVID money that has been appropriated that hasn't been spent. Why spend it then? I mean, so there's a lot of places we could find savings, and we can make government more efficient, more effective. We can end the pandemic, which would save us money. We could have federal employees go back to work. We passed a bill on that. And there were 47% of federal employees aren't at work today, in the office. So what I look at is a number of things, but we've got to get our fiscal house in order is the fundamental thing we have to do and put us on a path to balance.
Is there a dollar amount that you think would get you to sign off on a deal? Are we there yet? Or yeah.
I do not predetermine what that is, but what I laid out what the president is, we're going to spend less money. Mm-hmm. And another dollar amount that you would look at, not just all the savings, but what if you were able to secure the border? What if you were able to become energy independent? That's a lot of savings in itself because you have the price of fuel lower so people can work more, that more jobs would come to America.
So we saw this in the State of the Union where he came out and attacked Republicans falsely. It was a lie when he said that Republicans wanted to cut Social Security. And everybody in the chamber uproar, right? Like started. What was it like in the room? We saw you sitting behind him there.
It's even louder in person than is on television. What's really sad is the president loses a lot of credibility. When I publicly said we're not cutting Medicare and Social Security, but he loses a lot of credibility when the reason why in this new Congressional Budget Office report for the next 10 years, for the first time, all three trust funds become insolvent in the next 10 years. The Highway Trust Fund, Medicare, and Social Security. So when they put in Obamacare, they raided Medicare. When they just did their inflation bill, they raided Medicare. So why do we have a problem? Why it's becoming insolvent even quicker? What the Democrats have done to Medicare. And to turn around and know it's a lie, to try to tell the American public that the Republicans are going after it. We are the ones that have been trying to save it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Biden has since seemingly signaled that he's at least willing to deal with you guys. Do you think that that moment blowing up on him there in the State of the Union like it did, he seemed to recognize it, right? Like he almost was like negotiating back and forth. Do you think that that moment has forced his hand now and now he's willing to work with you guys?
I think only time will tell, right? I mean, the president's answer is to tax more. That's the worst thing you do in an economy right now that has no growth. It's the worst thing you do with inflation, what he's wanting to do as well. I think government spending less curbs inflation, makes us stronger economically, and eliminates waste in government.